Hey guys, Staff Sergeant Mo. They're getting ready to go live. All right, so I'm just taking you guys out here for a moment. This is one of the other things that we need supporters here for. We set up, well, mostly David Fleeman, but we pitch in and help as we can with the few hands that we've had here lately. All of this gear, all those signs, these are all separate signs here. They get put up like they're two-fold or tri-fold, some of them. And they go up and down this area, up and down, where it's all agreed upon and allowed, right? And we put those signs up with the ladders. And we also put some of those signs up that are all rolled up. They're all rolled up. And you'll see them in many other videos if you haven't noticed. We use this platform here and that platform down there so that drivers can see the signs. And then besides setup, we lay it here when we're breaking it down. It gets all laid down here. Today, Jamie Landon, Neil Wamper, and myself helped David Fleeman. And everybody just got out of court. It was a late day in court today. I came out here early. Just redundancy, just total redundancy. But I wanted to keep David company. And you know, we just work together, we get everything lined up, and then he brings his truck, and then we all get it loaded up into his truck. So, you know, I mean, that takes effort for what he sets up and to tear it down. Every day, he has everything completely down pat, like to science. Yeah, they work their asses off. That's right, Terry. Thank you for helping that day, too. It is hard work, but it's easier when there's more hands. Most certainly, right? So, you know, one of the things is, you know, we're bringing education awareness. David will sit out here all day. People do approach him and ask questions. And he does his very best to educate. He doesn't like speaking. It's not a comfortable role for him. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are good speakers. And you might be out there. And if you're looking for something to do on the ground and you're not too far, or if you have the time, it would be great just to pop in if you don't want to go up inside the courthouse with us. All right. Some people might want to stay down here and keep David Fleeman company. Make sure he's safe. Make sure he has everything he needs. Sit with him and hand out constitutions and educational information to those that walk by and wish to be provided information. I was down here today on one of the breaks, and a gentleman in a wheelchair and his wife or girlfriend approached David Fleeman right there when he was sitting there. And I was doing an interview somewhere around here, and I looked over, and these people had come up to David, and he was educating them, providing them an education. So I'm going to bring you over to Andrea and John. You can also go to their channels now too. I just wanted to share that with you.
Las Vegas Federal Courthouse. We're at the end of day 13 since the trial has begun, and we have some updates for you. It's been a long day, a boring day, I can say, at least. And Andrea's going to give you the updates. She was in court all day long with Eric Parker, Scott Drexler, Stephen Stewart, and Ricky Loveland. I was in another court hearing for the doctor earlier this morning, and we got to give you that update at noon. So Andrea's going to mainly give you all the updates for what we have for the day.
Okay, so we went back in this morning and went into the jury questions for Special Agent Willis. Once again, this is the special agent in charge of the whole case. He sits in the courtroom and then goes up to testify. He's been there the entire time. So we're just going into the jury questions. You heard about his testimony yesterday. Did the gap given with the flyover have an effect on your timeline? Once again, this gentleman is taking pictures off the internet, pictures off of media sources, and giving them a time based on other pictures with the media metadata and the flyover. He says, no, it only affected when the BLM was leaving because that's when they went and refueled. There was also a question if he was concerned for his safety at the site. Obviously, the jury did not understand that he was never at the Bunkerville site in 2014. So he said, no, I wasn't there. It was asked if he was visited at a later date. and that he went and looked through the gap. The answer was yes. And did you take pictures? And the answer was yes, but we never got to see any of those pictures or hear anything else. Another question was about the Citizens, a website that they were taking pictures off of, and whether they were pro Bundy or against Bundy. I think he said they went to go show the protests, and they just happened to be out there during the standoff. That was his answer to that question. I don't believe it actually answered the question. It was just kind of weird. They said number 98, they're not going to ask that question. We didn't even find out what the question was. Then there was a bunch of questions on 99 on the metadata, whether they're able to change it. If you post it to Facebook, Facebook adds metadata. If you do it to Dropbox, it shouldn't add metadata. If you take it from one file and add it to another, it adds metadata. So it was really confusing.
Good question.
But at the end, he says, every picture you see in my timeline has multiple references, and that is how I'm time-stamping it. So if there is enough, all of these other sources, why do we need to take pictures off of Facebook and give them times? This is a distraction tactic, and they are making up this timeline. And this is just the way that they're doing it.
Yes, they are.
The government was able to redirect, asking about from the time the people pushed up further to the gate to when they drew back. Was the plane going over? You didn't need metadata. Leventhal came back with the fact that the aerial camera going to refuel affect your analysis. He's saying yes. So you're saying that the aerial camera was there when the horses were in the wash, but it was not focused on the wash the entire time. So how can you say all these different pictures, you're stating, oh, I can tell because of where this truck was on the bridge at this time, I can tell based on where these people are in the wash at this time, but as he's bringing up, the aerial footage doesn't cover all of those at every second. Then the government calls Special Agent Sarah Draper. She is the special agent for Idaho. She's the one that's going to bring in Facebook evidence for Eric, Steve, and Scott Drexler. And she's the one that did the warrant on our property, on our house. I believe she might have been there when he was arrested. Not sure about that. She goes through a bunch of his different Facebook. A lot of this, Eric shares a post from the Elko County Lightfoot Militia. Adds a text. Got a neighbor down in Nevada. What are you going to do when the shooting starts? They're using the fact that he is sharing an article as him entering into the conspiracy. He shares an article that apparently had Ryan Payne's video embedded in the article. So he shares an article, no text, and they play the Ryan Payne video. This is what they're apparently using to link him to the conspiracy, that he came to the aid at Ryan Payne's video, but it doesn't actually show. He could have just read the article and not watched the video that was embedded in the article, so I'm not sure how that goes. They entered a post that says, does anyone know anyone in the Nevada militia? This post doesn't have any responses to it, but that's entered as evidence against him. Another piece, we had some arguing outside of the jury. They argued back and forth. At one point, they took a large post and redacted one part where he says the snipers were green lighting, meaning giving him reason to get down. They omitted that part, and they will not put that in the post. Another post, a big long post that they said, they omitted once they threatened to kill everyone if the crowd did not disperse. And then they also omitted the Miller's name down at the bottom. There was other parts that they did not want to omit, which had to do with
I think so, yeah.
yeah. What is his name?
I'm so bad at names.
I know, I'm horrible. The guy's name, the bomber.
McVeigh.
Oh, McVeigh.
A huge part of, he's talking about McVeigh.
From Oklahoma, that's all I need to hear.
They want to leave McVeigh in there, but they're going to omit the Millers, and they're going to admit once they threatened to kill everyone if the crowd did not disperse. They omit that because that goes to show the heavy-handedness of the BLM, and they've already decided that that's not going to go in there. So there's a bunch of going back and forth with a 3% of Idaho video. There's another back and forth with a comment, then a thumbs up on that comment. It's an objection because it's hearsay. The judge literally reads through her book, her 801 book, is trying to find a reason to admit this evidence. She has never once done this for the defense. She is now sitting there with the prosecution, reading her book, saying, well, how are we going to get this in here, you guys? And after, I'm saying that could have been about 20 minutes, she looks at the prosecution, keeps trying to have them give her a bone, tell her where she can find it in here. She's waiting for them to say, well, it goes to 801D2B, which means co-conspirator statement, because if they throw that in, they get around the hearsay. But the prosecution can't do that, so the judge is forced to say, well, does it go to an 801D2B? And as soon as they do, they ask to give foundation for that. Sarah Draper gives foundation, and that is going to be entered as evidence.
Thumbs up. It's a co-conspirator now statement. A co-conspirator statement for a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Well, what they're saying, though, is that the person posted to Eric Parker. Feds got scared when you got there and backed off. And Eric liked it. So as soon as he thumbs that up, it actually goes to admission. He is adapting that comment by a thumbs up. Have you ever thumbs up something? Well, guess what? In the courthouse, that means that you adopted that statement, and that is now your own statement for thumbs up. So they enter that in as well. Sarah Draper goes through most of the day, and then towards the end, they ask that she be taken off the stand so they can bring this gun specialist in. She identifies Eric Parker and Stephen Stewart's weapons. She enters them into evidence and then gets off the stand so they can have the gun specialist take the stand so possibly he could go home today. The gun specialist gets onto the stand. He talks about normally his job is to identify bullets and match the bullet with the gun. But here his job is to identify guns in pictures and match the guns if they have them to the pictures, and if they don't have them, identify what weapon it is that they use. As you can imagine, this was a fairly boring situation. He is sitting up there clanging the weapons, using the weapons, showing the weapons to everyone, at least the two that they had. They had Eric Parker's and they have Stephen Stewart's. They do not have Ricky Loveland's or Scott Drexler's, so then he does that to the video, or to the pictures. He talks about the fact that, what type of weapon they are, what they shoot, but he says he did not check them for range, which would have been the most important here. They need to be checked for range, so they bring in a gun specialist to talk about the guns, but he's not going to speak on their range. So then we'll go right to cross-examination. Obviously, first, Tanasi brings up the fact that Stephen Stewart's gun is not a shotgun. And that the front sight is broken, which he did not testify to indirect. He didn't say, yeah, this front sight is broken on this weapon. No, he waits until they bring it up. And then he makes him say that the firearm is not pointed in any direction. He also brought up to the jury that this gentleman has testified in court 43 times, and every time the state or the prosecution has called him up. So that goes to his bias. Marchese asked about the water test date. They did a water test on Eric Parker's gun. He then says that the date was January 18, 2017, and then he goes to say something else. Marchese shuts him down. He's asked if he has the finger on the trigger and if he could tell if it was loaded or not. He did testify in direct that he could tell that the safety was off. Leventhal gets up. Leventhal brings up that it appears to be a rifle, but it also could be an airsoft gun that chews plastic. And if wind would affect the flight or range of the bullet, and if being inside the slit for the barrier affect the range, he's meaning the range left and right, being able to sight it in, and he said yes. At this point, one of the FBI agents that sits behind the bar then gets up to go help Myrie when Myrie goes up to redirect. He asked when he did the water test and asked him to finish elaborating. He also did a ballistic test on that weapon to see if it matched for any unsolved murders. It did not. Then he was asked if he could tell a shotgun by appearance only. Obviously, he said yes.
And they found that relevant.
Yeah.
to talk about
They
unsolved
did find
murders.
the fact that it wasn't linked to any other unsolved murder is relevant and could be asked in the courtroom, even though it's not in the scope of redirect, because he didn't actually ask that question, and the guy didn't even get anything done. Just one more minute. Then he was asked if he could see if someone might think it was a shotgun. The guy gets up, explains why they might think it's a shotgun. Tanasi, you can tell it's not a shotgun based on your law enforcement training. He has to say yes. And then the judge asks if an airsoft is a firearm. The jury then asks questions. They've got a lot of questions today. They had a big, huge amount of them. Unfortunately, it was past 5 o'clock when the jury wrote down their questions. So this gentleman is still going to have to come back tomorrow. I don't understand how in a courtroom they can have one person testify for a certain amount of time and then just pull them off of the stand, put another person up. You know, we've seen all of these new things in this trial. We saw Alex Ellis testify, supposed to be in cross-examination, doesn't show up. We've seen then the next person supposed to be in cross-examination, but Alex Ellis comes back, he gets cross-examined, and then the next person. I think that this goes to also distract the jury from their questions. Like, I feel like they need to ask their questions right after the person testifies, and they might be playing around with this. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way, you know, to me, it should be one person, cross-examine, jury questions, and then done. I don't understand all of this jumping around. Not to mention that they have Agent Willis, who's going to testify here, enter all the evidence, and then come back and re-testify later and enter his timeline. Did you say you had a question?
Yeah, in regards to Stephen Stewart's firearm, I've never seen a shotgun with an 18-inch barrel.
Exactly.
Good point.
They bring up all of these wonderful points. They also brought up the fact that Stephen Stewart's gun does have a magazine, and it's for 9mm, and that's why everyone was confused whether it was a rifle or a shotgun. And of course, they don't bring in the range there. Yeah. You know, could his weapon? I believe some of the jury questions tomorrow will go to speak to that. So I'll be interested when we come in tomorrow. Obviously, the first thing, it's going to be interesting, and then we'll go back to Sarah Draper.
We're starting late again tomorrow. We're starting about 10 o'clock. We can get here at 9:30 when the counsel can get together and ask some questions, but the actual jury doesn't get here until 10 o'clock. Is there any more questions that any of you seen pop up on there that people want to know?
No, I have a lot of comments, just not questions. So
okay.
yeah, they're outraged.
I want to add one more thing. We're starting late so that the prosecution and the defense can get in and argue about these Facebook posts that they want to bring in outside the jury. So this is another tactic. They weren't able to do that inside today, and I would say we spent at least a third of the day in sidebar while they were arguing back and forth. They tried to enter a 3% of Idaho video that apparently had all of them depicted in, but they did not create. So they actually
changed their mind, because I just watched that video and it's not
bad.
It's not bad. So they're probably just going to do screenshots of where they have their rifles and stuff in.
So they're just going to
change
take
their mind
screenshots from that video after they argued for like another 20 minutes. They're taking screenshots only and going to enter that separately. So they want to come in the morning. They want to argue through all of this so they can speed through and get this information in. The way I hear it, we don't have many more people coming on the stand for the prosecution. They could rest by Thursday or possibly Monday. That's all I've got. Oh, yeah, one more.
Wouldn't that go to a state of mind for Stephen Stewart to bring a round which is virtually worthless beyond 50 yards? They got bulletproof vest on. I mean, if you're really serious about engaging somebody, you wouldn't bring a 9mm. I mean, I walked that out. They're at least 200 yards away. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight.
The whole case is built off of what looks scary. If something looks scary,
we're trying to escalate it to look scary.
Jurors and intimidate everybody else by what looks scary.
And then his sights were broken. I mean, to me, the state of mind, you just weren't serious at all when you went there as far as having any kind of real firefight.
What I've seen of this case so far is all built 100% off a Facebook post.
Yep.
The whole case is.
Yes, sir.
And they take these little things and they tell you, their expert witnesses are telling the jurors what these defendants are thinking, their state of mind.
Cherry picking and piecing it together like their own little manipulated puzzle. A puzzle that doesn't actually fit together, but they're going to make it look like it fits together.
Exactly.
Well,
totally
the
lies.
defense will look at this and what we've been bringing up and be able to interject it tomorrow.
Well, and what is going on inside is the prosecution is making it so these defendants have to take the stand to defend themselves. That's what happened in the first trial, and Eric Parker getting on the stand did help. So I hope what we see in this trial is that more of them will take the stand, that more people will come up, and we'll have more witnesses that are able to come in and help create this story or get the truth out there, because they are preventing the truth from the courtroom. And that's really our only hope, because we have truth on our side. That's why they're pushing so hard to keep the truth out of the courtroom. That's why they've stacked the jury against us, and they're doing all of this.
And of course, we can expect they'll probably limit the amount of people allowed to witness for the defense. That's something we probably can anticipate again. But nonetheless, we need the witnesses.
Well, they intimidated,
and then they intimidate them as well.
This time we're hoping that we have some stronger witnesses and some that are more prepared to testify, that aren't so intimidated. And if we can get these defendants up there, like Andrea said, that's going to be awesome, because that truth can be brought out through their testimonies.
My all-time favorite witness is still Michelle Arnett.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, I think that's all we've got.
We probably won't have a live stream again till tomorrow afternoon, because we're getting started so late that it's probably going to be after 5 o'clock tomorrow before we have another update. But
thank you both again
for joining us, and God bless. Keep praying for us.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Well, guys, I'll take you guys to the side. So hot. We're hot. So hot. Doing this is so hot. So, look, wow. What is there to say in regards? I did have a thought, an afterthought to share with you guys. Oh, that's right. We had a reporter here today from E&E. I really liked her demeanor. We'll see. I don't really know what her content is, so I'm going to do a little homework on that and research. Something about green energy, though, is something that they primarily work on. So I'm interested in seeing her questions, I thought, for someone who hasn't spent a lot of time in the courtroom, just a little bit today. She hasn't been given a lot of field time out here for this trial. She's hoping to get more field time later. So I'm encouraged that there's a new form of media coming out from out of state to come see us here. I am definitely interested in, I've invited her to go to the August 12th. Oh, and if you don't know, I've been posting about an August 12th symposium with Roger Roots. Roger Roots has created the event, a website, and it's going to be at the Camp Liberty Annex. And I've invited that reporter to come see what that's all about. She's very curious, so her and I are going to talk a little bit more about that offline. And I think I made a lot of really good comments due to her questions, her line of questioning, that allowed me to expound my thoughts and answers in regards to what we're dealing with here on the ground, giving her a short summary in regards to this trial versus the Oregon trial, because she knew a little bit about that and what happened at the Oregon stand-up, and describing to her what it is that people, she asked me a really good question. Do you feel that a lot of people have had more hope in this new administration with Donald Trump? That was a really good question, because it opened a whole can of worms for me, because I'm not giving up hope on this. And I'd like to see how she quotes it and everything, but I went on to tell her I do believe a lot of people still have hope in this administration. I myself personally am losing some confidence. However, I never give up on that hope. We are exhausting to the umpteenth all of our resources and being ignored. I described the Trump administration question led me to discuss the Ryan Zinke fiasco that just took place yesterday, or was that the day before, and how he ignored the Bundys and Brianna's pleas when she was right there on the ground and he is just feet away, and then, you know, before at one location when he was 10 minutes away, but to see him just ignore her, and she just wanted to hand a letter, and she was begging for 5 minutes of his time, to see us being, she represented something to me. When I watched the video, she was worried she was too emotional. But when I watched the video, she represented the truth. This is an emotional topic because this is personal. When the federal government is violating our rights and violating our liberties and violating our properties, violating life and the pursuit of happiness, when we're being violated throughout America systemically, with multiple types of variations and violations. And then we go and cry out in regards to this as different communities and groups and cliques and engineered divides, okay? But nonetheless, we're all crying out against the federal government's crimes against we the people. And we do this over and over and over and over and over again, exhausting every resource you can think of. And then they ignore us. Ryan Zinke, when you ignored Breonna Bundy that day, when you essentially ignored and did not sit down with any of the Bundys that day, Ryan Zinke, you ignored we the people, because I'm telling you, that family stood on their ground for their purposes in 2014 for that separate reason. But again, for their neighbor in Oregon, certain individual Bundy members and many other supporters from around the nation went to go stand in Harney County, Oregon, to stand by the Hammonds. The Bundys wanted to stand by their neighbor, the Hammonds, because of their plight and their the oppression in Harney County and what was effectively happening to the Hammonds specifically. And let me tell you something, Ryan Zinke, to ignore we the people and only just hobnob around with other officials who are ignoring the people, we saw that. We saw right through your bullshit, your two-faced commentary. We saw right through that. And it's unacceptable, intolerable. And I have just got to go on further to say that any emotions exhibited from any one individual involved in these situations is nothing compared to what you probably can imagine is going on behind closed doors. So for anybody to criticize or even think that someone can have any emotion during these situations, when most of the time, 90% of the time or greater, their emotions are in check. These people are people of strength. These people have more courage than any public official, for sure, because they all kowtow to one another for their reputation's sake, or for power, or for greed, or for money, constantly being corruptible or corrupted already. Yet we have people, everyday people, farming, ranching, simple lives, other issues throughout other communities in America who just want to live their lives and are willing to stand against the tyranny and corruption, and that's courage. And they do so with good conduct and professionalism more than 90% of the time. How dare you ignore people that are highly regarded? Just because you ignored them does not mean they're regarded any less. But those of us, and there are many that regard them highly, that saw that, Ryan Zinke. And I'm sorry, President Trump, you hired him. He's your boy. You talk to him, because he ain't listening to us. So you show us, we the people, that we should have any confidence in your administration. Please, by all means, prove it to us. Because this community, these trials that are going on in this courtroom behind me, we're not seeing any action. We see your lips moving, but we don't see action.